Welcome to Game Fondue Reviews. In this video we're going to take a look at Dragonheart. Dragonheart's a two-player game in which players are competing to either free the great dragon or keep him petrified. Let's jump right in with the description of the rules, see a few example turns being played, then I'll be back for some closing remarks.
This is the setup for Dragonheart. To set it up, each player picks a color, either red or green, takes that deck, shuffles it, and then draws a hand of 5 cards. Other than that, you just put the Great Dragon on this space here in the corner, and you can start the game. During the game, players alternate turns, which are composed of playing cards, collecting cards, and drawing cards. The game ends after the third stack of ships is completed, which we'll explain in a second, or if a player is unable to redraw to their hand size. In either case, their opponent takes one more turn and the game ends. Whoever has the most points in their score pile will be the winner. So let's first go through the playing cards phase. During this phase, player must play at least one card, but can play any number of the same type of cards as long as there's enough space on the board. When you play a card, you play it to the matching space. For example, this dragon will be played on this space because that's the matching space of this dragon. And spaces that have one card outline can hold any number of cards, but only the top one will be visible. Although if you play multiple of the same card, you have to show your opponent each one you're playing so they know the values, which are on all 4 corners of the card. But other spaces have a certain number of outlines. For instance, this has 3 and this has 3, meaning that if there was already 2 here, you could only play one more because this can only ever hold 3 huntresses. The next phase is collecting cards, and you do that by collecting cards based on what cards you've activated or have played this turn. And you can see various arrows on the board. So for instance, if I played 2 dragons this turn, they would have gone here, and there's an arrow here indicating that when I play dragons, I get all of the cards in this pile. These are treasure chests. So if there were these treasure chests here, I would just take them, and they'd be in my score pile, which I keep face down in front of me. I can look at it, my opponent can't. You'll note that there's no arrows going out of treasure chest, so if you play a treasure chest, you don't get anything. They're just generally more valuable than other cards. There's also some spots with 2 arrows, in which case you have to choose either or. So if I played a sorcerer or multiple sorceresses, like so, I could either take cards from here or cards from here. If I take any cards from here, it has to be at least one. If it's empty, it would do nothing. But if I take at least one card from here, I get the Great Dragon. And the significance of the Great Dragon is he increases your hand size to 6. And if your opponent has him when you take one, you take the Great Dragon from him, draw a card from his hand at random. You don't get to look at it, but you put it back on top of his deck. So his hand size will go back to 5. Another space to note is these dwarves. There's room for 4 dwarves, so as soon as that 4th dwarf is placed, all these will go to that person's score pile, and they will score those 4 dwarves. They don't kill anything else, but they are collected by the player who plays the 4th one. Keep in mind, if there's already 3 dwarves there, and you have 3 in your hand, you can still only play 1, because this space can only hold 4. Trolls take sorceresses. Knights and huntresses are a little bit different because you have to play the full amount. So if there's already 1 knight here, for instance, on your turn, and you play that 2nd knight, then you can either take the huntresses or the trolls. And this works exactly the same way, except you take these dragons here. The only special thing to note about these two is when they are filled, after the collection phase, they go face up down here in this part of the board underneath the ships. And the reason that is when the ships are full, so there's 3 ships laid out, any huntresses and knights under that will be collected by the player who played the final ship and put in their group. Also, at this time, the ships are going to form stacks beside the board, so you can see them here. And that just indicates the game progression because when that 3rd stack of ships is fulfilled, it's going to be the last turn of the game. And the last phase of the turn is just draw cards, and you simply draw back up to your hand size, which is normally 5, but if you have the Great Dragon, it's 6. So the game ends after the 3rd ship stack is filled and placed beside the board, or a player cannot fully refill his hand. In both cases, the other player takes one final turn, and then players add up the value of the cards in their score pile. Whoever has the highest score wins. Also, the dragon is worth 3 points at the end of the game to whoever's holding it. Let's get going with this example playthrough. So this player is going to go first, and he's just going to lay out 1 treasure here. The treasures collect nothing, but even if they did, there's nothing else on the board, so you don't get to collect from an empty space. So then he just redraws up to 5 cards. Remember, he could have played any number of these because this is only a 1 card outline. He only had 1 in his hand though, so that's all he chose to play. If he had more, he doesn't have to play them all, just the ones that he'd like to play. So now it's this guy's turn, and he decides he's also going to lay out 1 treasure chest and just draw back up to 5. So it comes back to this guy, and he decides to lay out 1 huntress down here. And nothing happens there because it requires that 3rd huntress to be placed because there's 3 card outlines, but even if it did, there's no dragons yet. So nothing would happen. Draws back up to 5. We're going to jump ahead a little bit so you can see a little more action. Welcome back. It's now this player's turn. He decides to lay out a sorceress, and because the sorceress has arrows going this way and this way, he can pick either this or this, but he decides to take this petrified dragon, goes to his score pile, and he gets the Great Dragon. So now instead of drawing back up to 5 cards, he draws back up to 6. And then for this guy's turn, he decides to lay out another petrified dragon and draw again, and then this guy decides to lay out a treasure chest here. And then he draws back up as normal, This guy decides he's going to steal that petrified dragon from the other guy by playing this sorceress here. Remember, he could also have played this one, but he wants to keep it in his hand. So he takes this dragon to his score pile, and then he gets a dragon here. Now, because this guy has 6 cards in his hand, we're going to shuffle him out, hold him up. This guy's going to draw one, stick it on top of his deck. So now he's back down to 5, but this guy gets to draw up to 6. So the game proceeds like this. We'll jump ahead to when one of the ship stacks is filled so we can see what happens then. Welcome back. It's about the end of the game. It's this player's turn. So he's going to play that last ship. So he gets all of these, and that's the 3rd ship stack. The ship stacks here are 1, 2, and 3. So the game is going to be over after this player's turn, but he does draw back up as normal. So this guy's going to lay out that 3rd huntress. The huntresses, because they're complete, go down here, but then he gets all of these. So now we just total the points in each player's score pile. Whoever has the most wins.
I like Dragonheart because it plays fast, it's easy to understand, and it can be very tense, especially if there's a large amount of points on the board and 1 or 2 empty spaces. Like if there's 2s in the huntresses and there's 1 empty one, everybody's kind of trying to get through their deck as quickly as possible to get the last one. There is a heavy luck factor in this game though, just based on what cards you draw, but it definitely helps to understand what cards are in your deck and what cards are in the deck of your opponent, which is exactly the same as yours. So I don't think the game is that bad in terms of luck, but some people definitely will find the luck overwhelming. That being said, there's a beautiful implementation of this on Board Game Arena, so if you're on the fence about it, I suggest you check it out there. But it is a neat little fun game for what it is. That's Dragonheart. Look fun to you? Check it out.